you like it, you can always email me for more details. You can look on my website, but I encourage you to use this little code because it's bloody powerful, it's transformational, and it has impacted hundreds of thousands of people, from CEOs and big organizations to poor students in South Africa who have nothing but hope. It's a very, very useful tool. So like I say, it's open source code and I encourage you to use it. So I want to talk to you today about the next wave, like what's next for all of us. And this little tool in many ways can help crystallize thinking and can help us all reactivate our life purpose, which might have been smashed down by politics, by COVID, by disunity, by partisan rancor, by the crap that you see every time you turn that dial and you see the different networks coming across you with the latest leadership screw up, with the latest problem in the world. So how I want to start off my program tonight is I'd like to get one word from everyone that really describes how you're feeling right now in the context of what's happening and what's ahead of us. So I'm using this, hopefully it works. It's got sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm even struggling now to advance my slide here, which is kind of interesting. Okay, here. So this is the way it works. You can either send to this URL the one word, or you can text. And all you do, you can see the instructions at the top of the screen. Text to 22333 the word Shaun Tomson 929. Okay, that helps you, that gets you to join. Or else you can just go straight to the poll, pollev.com/Shaun Tomson 929. And then you can send in the word. So what I want from everyone is just one word. And all these words are going to bomb in, hopefully, to the screen here. And everyone will get an indication. Here's the first word, educated. Everyone will get an indication of how everyone is feeling right now. So I know it might be a little bit convoluted, but you can use the URL or text. So the instructions are up there. So just pull out your phone. The number is 22333 and the message is Shaun Tomson 929. Boom, that logs you in. And then you just text me the one word. Or else you can go straight to pollev.com/Shaun Tomson 929. So stoked. Stoked is my favorite word, I think, in the entire world. Tired, that's another word. So over the last 6 months, since April, I've done this program with over 100,000 people. Massive companies like Gilead Sciences, drug rehabilitation clinics, schools, universities. Tired, stoked, encouraged, challenged, educated. And this is just a way to see how others are feeling, hopeful. You know, keep bombing the words, and I don't know how many people are on the live stream, but certainly as many words as we can get in, I think it's useful for us to hear how everyone else is feeling. So I'll we'll have this up for about 60 more seconds. So we've got some good words up there: educated, stoked, challenged, tired, hopeful, inspired. And what's interesting about this process is that there's definitely a duality of response. When I first started doing this at the beginning of April, my first crew that I did it with was Surfrider Foundation. We had about 400 people on the live stream. And it was very, very negative. I would say 80% negative, 20% positive. And over the last few months, certainly it has shifted in some way. And what I've seen after having spoken to about 100,000 people over the last few months is this. If I can get my PowerPoint to advance, it would be wonderful. Some more words coming in. Is, hold on. Sorry guys, we're having a technical hitch. But what is a presentation without a technical hitch? When I was a young bloke, we'd watch these surf movies, and every time we'd watch a surf movie, there was like hundreds of crazy people in the audience, and then the film when Jerry Lopez was riding through the tube at the Banzai Pipeline would like just start melting. So let's see if I can get it right here. Sorry about this. Oh, I can't even advance my slides here. Okay, so this is what I have found, and hopefully it's not going to be this difficult right the way through, is that these are the three fundamental challenges that we're facing right now. I call it a sad state of mind: stress, anxiety, despair. So obviously there's the stresses that we're all feeling, health and economic. Anxiety about like what's next. That's why I entitled my talk, The Code for the Next Wave, like what's next? How are we going to adjust? How are we going to adjust to the social disconnection, no group physical activity, very little sport, and then just the feeling of despair and disconnection, that we're overwhelmed by working in crisis mode. When's it going to end? When's life going to get back to normal? So we are going to be in a new normal. And I think for all of us, I think a fundamental principle, it's a fundamental principle of my life, and I think it's a fundamental principle of all your work, is this: surfing makes life better. I've had many photographs of myself taken during my surfing career, but I think that's one of my favorites because it just represents that sort of quiet exhilaration associated with surfing, and that feeling of well-being that so many people are trying to find in their lives, and that us as surfers and us as practitioners and therapists that help people know that surfing can make your life better. So this is the founding principle of I think of what I do in my life. So I'm going to give you two things today. One's the perspective of my life that's been built around passion and purpose and hope, especially in the context of what's happening in our lives today. I think I talk about hope. And then I'm going to give you the code. And the code is a simple tool to help activate purpose. And I encourage you all to use this code. Like I said earlier, it's open source code. A lot of people are not confused, but sometimes are a little bit mystified by purpose, because purpose is a big word. It's like complex. But I think purpose is really simple, and purpose is just power. Purpose is our internal power. Purpose is our mojo. Purpose is our mana. Purpose is the power that enables organizations and individuals to thrive. And purpose is a higher calling. Purpose is not like a goal. It's not like a SMART goal: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time sensitive. It's like management. Purpose ain't that. Purpose is not like a SMART goal. Purpose is this ultimate life aim and mission. And here's a little acronym that I developed. I like to think that there's 5 principal elements of purpose, and the acronym's AIM at. Aspirational. Purpose is something that we aspire towards. Purpose is inspirational. Our purpose and the purpose of others inspires us. Purpose is moral. And I think Morals are very, very important concept in the context of the amoral behavior from leadership over the last number of years. Purpose is authentic. My purpose is authentic to me. Your purpose is authentic to you. There's no bullshit associated with purpose. It's absolutely authentic. And purpose is timeless. It's not like a SMART goal, which is time sensitive. Purpose is timeless. Our purpose is forever. And why is purpose important? So here's some interesting statistics. A couple of statistics I'm going to talk about today, but not too much. Having purpose in life makes you live longer. How about that? So we can get people connected to their fundamental purpose through this wonderful activity of surfing. We can, and little study that was done on 250 first-year students at a university. These are massive longitudinal studies of 80,000 people. Look at that, 7,000, 73,000. So these are massive studies. Purpose makes you live longer. People who didn't have a strong sense of life purpose were twice as likely to die than those who did. I mean, how about that? And then also, working with a sense of purpose leads to far greater engagement, motivation, productivity, and retention. And another statistic from Gallup is that companies that are purpose-led, companies that are led by leaders with purpose, perform 42% better than companies that are simply in business. So purpose has a fundamental impact, not just on well-being, motivation, productivity, and retention, but also on the top line and the bottom line. So the code that I'm going to is a simple tool to find and define your purpose. Really simple tool, and when you see it in action, and if you might have heard about it or you might not have heard about it, you'll go, this thing is so bloody juvenile. It's so simple. How could it possibly work? But it does work, and it's worked for hundreds of thousands of people, and it's a simple concept. Find your purpose, find your power, and find your path. A lot of people come to surfing because they're searching. As you all know, people come there to search for spiritual connection. People come to surfing to search for surfing to see a different perspective on life. So there's an academic study on this, and I'm just showing you this, not to say that this code is the be-all and end-all of anything, but to show that there is academic validation but behind this simple little tool, that academic study on the efficacy of simple code method. And I love some of the exemplar quotes from the people that were interviewed in these different corporations. Blew my mind. I love that one. It's like a map. I lost 50 pounds after the code workshop in Keynote. How about that? I lost 50 pounds. And I love the last one. I developed a code with my 8-year-old son. We have his. I've got an 11-year-old son. So I'm a dad, and I know sometimes how hard it is to connect, and wonderful to read that. So the perspective I'm giving you, and I want to tell you, it's not a prescription. I'm just giving you a perspective. A perspective is just a way that one looks at life. And I love this picture inside the tube, looking out. But I'm not giving you a prescription. I'm just giving you a perspective, and perhaps maybe my perspective might shed some light on some difficulties that you might be facing in your life right now. I like to think that our perspective is a prism through which we view the world. So when I tell you some stories and tell you my perspective, just look through, and perhaps you might see something differently. You might not. So I want to give you a little bit of background about myself. I grew up in a place called Durban, South Africa. That's my mom on the beach. My mom was a survivor, a woman of great hope and optimism. She endured 3,400 air raids while living on the island of Malta during the Second World War, the most heavily bombed place in the history of the world. For 4 years, they had to live in underground shelters. It was a strategic seaport in the Mediterranean. They were bombed by the Nazis and by the Italians. And then eventually she was evacuated when the island started to starve, and ended up in South Africa. And she told me, my mom, still alive, she's 90 years old. And she told me that when she walked out and saw that Indian Ocean, she said to me, I've never felt as free as when I've been at the sea. How cool is that? She's a wonderful woman of just great hope, optimism, and incredible internal power. My father, that's my brother Paul, and my sister Tracy, us on the beach in Durban. My father was a champion athlete. He was South African junior swimming champion at 13 years old, loved the water, was a volunteer lifeguard, so spent all his free time down on the beach, was a surfer when surfing was really in its infancy in the 30s and the 1940s. Volunteered for the Second World War to go and fight against the same Italians and Germans that were bombing my mother. He fought in southern Italy and North Africa, was a tail gunner in a B-25 Marauder, an American plane, and then came back to South Africa after the war was over, and he resumed his swimming career. And his dream was to swim for his country in the Olympic Games that were coming up, the 1948 Olympic Games in London after the war was over. And he was out there on his little wooden surfboard waiting for a wave on the beach in Durban, South Africa. And this is what happened to my dad. Just from the front page of the newspaper, I was lifted clear from the water. A Zambezi shark came up underneath him and hit him so hard, it lifted him clear in the water, and one bite nearly ripped his arm off. And the first words of this article my dad wrote that I only found a couple of years ago, it was an ideal day for surfing and for sharks. A beauty came up and I caught it with my surfboard. The others missed it and I came in alone right through the surf to the water's edge. And then he starts talking about how he paddled out again and how the shark hit him. Well, in one bite, my dad's swimming career was over. He was never, ever going to be going to the Olympic Games. It had ripped out his bicep, tore his arm up, and he never, ever had complete use of his arm. But my father never, ever lost this profound love that he had for the ocean and for surfing, and taught me how to swim and surf 50 yards away from where he'd had this dreadful shark attack. I like to think that even a shark bite didn't turn him off the ocean. And he gave me this incredible love, and I started surfing at a very, very young age. For my bar mitzvah, I'm Jewish. He took me to Hawaii shortly after my bar mitzvah when I was 14 years old. That's a shot of my father and myself. And I rode some of the biggest surf that I've ever ridden on that day when Greg Knoll caught his huge wave. I was out there at Makaha on that same swell. Ultimately, I started to get good pretty quickly. I like to say that I was an instant success. I came third in my very first surfing event. There was only 3 of us in the contest, but I came third. I started to do a little bit better than third out of 3. And in South Africa, I had to, I was conscripted in the army. And when I was 17 years old, I won my first major pro event. It was called the Gunston 500. And then when I went on to, a long career as a professional surfer. I was the oldest guy to win, the youngest guy to win, helped develop pro surfing. That's with one of my greatest rivals and my greatest friends, a guy called Rabbit Bartholomew, winning the world title. That's a picture of myself and my cousin Michael. Lost my cousin a couple of weeks ago to cancer. It was very sad. But I was on the cover of the magazines, and it was a really great laugh to help create professional surfing. And along the way, I was one of the guys to help create the surfing industry. I started my first company when I was 22 years old. It was called Instinct. I called it Instinct because the best moments in surfing are when you're riding inside the tube, and the very best tube rides happen when you're operating on Instinct. We had a wonderful ad campaign, experiential ad campaign, and I sponsored other surfers too. I sponsored Tom Carroll, Australian guy, to 2 world titles while he was on the Instinct team. And in this particular time in 1984, 1985, both Tom and I were going for the world title. And right at the end in 1985, he just beat me, and he got first and I got second. Sponsored another amazing surfer who won the world title in 1988, Barton Lynch from Australia. And I loved this whole professional surfing aspect, the business aspect. But what I loved most was tube riding. And I think for me, tube riding is this art form that's inside of surfing. It was really a place where I could really engage with my creative soul and really start to develop new techniques for riding inside this spinning tunnel of water. And I thought I'd give you a little bit of a little video here of what it feels like to break new ground and really ride deep inside the tube.
When you get into a deep barrel, it certainly feels like time's expanded, like life has slowed down. I felt that I could curve that wall to my will. I really felt that. It's a magical, magical moment. It's an incredible moment.
My God, he changed the way we rode tubes off the wall. Like all of us at the time. We were thinking about what we could do to leave our mark. And Shaun, you know, had a huge influence of the evolvement of modern day tube riding.
He's doing things on single fins in the 70s that, you know, a lot of guys aren't doing on their thrusters now. You know, the barrel shots, there's some slow motion shots of him riding the foam ball. Just unbelievable, modern, way ahead of its time barrel riding.
So yeah, so that was my life for a long time, riding inside those spinning barrels right across the world, the Banzai Pipeline, off the wall, Jeffreys Bay. It was a great life. But I was a hardcore competitor, loved competing. And in 1984, I got a call from a guy called Glenn Henning. Glenn is a real maverick individual, and he said, Shaun, Malibu is facing a severe environmental challenge. I want you to help us raise awareness for this new environmental group that we're going to form to protect waves, oceans, and beaches across the world. He said, I want you to be the first ambassador of the organization. I was the #1 guy in the world at the time. I said, sure, Glenn, I'd love to help you. He said, you know what we need? We need a great picture for a poster, and we need some slogan. So I said, I'll get you a picture and I'll write your slogan. And, you know, looking back, it was so long ago, 1984, I've come to realize over the years and in all the work that I've done with hundreds of thousands of people, that words have unbelievable power. Our words have incredible power. Our thoughts have incredible power. But until you pick up a bloody pen and write it down, they just get blown away by the wind. This is where the power is. The thought, the writing, and then ultimately the action. And I wrote these 5 words. And these 5 words have certainly become a touchstone for my life. And certainly these 5 words represent so much about what all of you are doing. This whole concept of altruism, this concept of just doing something good for others without any expectation of doing anything in return. So this was Surfrider Foundation's first post. I've been involved with Surfrider since then. I was on the board for a number of years and just loved my time with the organization. But it showed me that during our lives, we have these turning points. And for me, this was one of them. So I retired from the tour in 1990, sold Instinct. And then my wife, Cara, and I, with our young son, Matthew, we decided to move to America. And I went around and interviewed with many surfing companies to get a job. I'd sold Instinct and wanted to start anew in the United States, but didn't want to start another new company. So, I interviewed all these fancy companies. You've heard of all the names in the surfing industry, and not one of them were interested in hiring Shaun Tomson. I thought, wow, I thought in my mind, I'm a pretty good catch. I was a surfer for a long time, helped create the industry, successful businessman. I studied economics and business finance at university. I think my cousin Michael Thompson and I, and Australian Derek Hind were like the only three formally educated pro surfers. But no one hired me. It was discouraging, man. I went around and no one wanted to hire me. I was like demoralized. I'd phone up my wife, and my wife said, "You better get a job." And my wife's awesome. So my last day in California, a friend of mine, a guy called Al Merrick, a very famous surfboard shaper from Channel Islands, one of my best mates, said to me, there's this little company in Ventura. You should check them out. They're called Patagonia. I went, Patagonia? The only Patagonia I know is a mountain range in Chile. He said, no, they make pretty cool stuff. He said, and the owner is Yvon Chouinard, and he loves surfing. I went, okay. I went down to Patagonia, met the crew. I loved them. They liked me. And they hired me on the spot. They gave me an offer at the end of the day. They flew my whole family in, became friends with Yvon. That's Yvon Chouinard there, and his wonderful wife, Melinda, actually stayed in their grandmother's home for like 6 months before my wife, Carla. On the far left is a mate of mine, Greg Harrison, one of my best mates. He was Chandler in the movie North Shore. But they were so incredible to me. And the 2 years that I worked at Patagonia, I learned so much about business and about this philosophy that doing good can be good for business. Not doing good can be good for business. Doing good is good for business. And Yvon would give us these lectures and say that, every time he's done the right thing, it's turned out to be ultimately the profitable thing and the best thing for business. So a great man, and I just learned so much about business from being involved with Patagonia. And my wife has a master's in design. She's a very, very talented woman. We decided to create our own company, and entrepreneurial spirit. So we created a new company that we called Solitude. And we called it Solitude because Instinct was about the tube and curving the wall to my will and bending time and space and operating in that state of flow. But at that time, the internet was just starting to happen and people were starting to be like so connected. Solitude was about escape, just paddling out to that broad open horizon. And we located the company right across the road from my second favorite wave in the world. Jeffreys Bay might be my first, Rincon might be my second. And we based it right across the freeway. So we were right there, and every time Rincon was good, I could crack the surf out at Rincon. And we called our company Solitude, and it was about living that dream, and our company became successful. And we also tried to bring that environmental focus that I learned about at Patagonia to the surfing industry. And all my mates would give me a hard time. And what's this whole environmentalism thing? And why are you selling your cotton shirts for more than the regular shirts, and we just try to do it differently. And we certainly built up a wonderful clientele. So one day I was sitting out in the lineup at Rincon, taking a break from work, and a guy paddles up to me. And he said, "Shaun, my name's Gordon Seachy. I'm a headmaster at a local school." Wait, I'm sorry. I'm getting a little bit. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself on my story here, and I love the story, and I bloody screwed it up. How about this? So I was sitting in the lineup, and Glenn Henning, same guy who had contacted me about Surf Rider Foundation, and he said, "Shaun, Rincon, your favorite break now, your adopted home break, is facing a severe environmental challenge." That's what he said to me. He said, "All the homeowners from those multi-million-dollar homes along the bluff are connected to septic tank systems. When it rains, the water table rises, the septics fill up, and the crap flows out into a little creek that bisects the break. And the crap flows into the water, and it's making the surface sick." He said, "I want to do something about it. I want to bring a group of kids down to the beach. I'm going to bring the media. I'm going to bring government officials, state officials, the water board." He said, "I want to highlight this problem so it can be solved." He said, "And I want you to help me raise the awareness of this problem amongst the kids." He said, "I want you to give them something to inspire and empower them." He said, "You've got $100 budget." I said, "Jesus, $100 budget. What can I do for $100? He said, "You'll think of something." So at the time, we had a warehouse full of clothes. I thought, well, maybe I'll give him some solitude gear. And then I did something different. I don't know whether I thought this out, but what I did so many years before with Surf Rider Foundation obviously had impacted me. So this is what I did. And I'm hoping that all of you that are on the live stream today are also going to do what I did. And I'm hoping that you can get the people who you're trying to help to do the same process, because it's bloody awesome. It is so simple. It's so fun. And it's a wonderful way just to crystallize your thinking. So I picked up a pen, I bust out a sheet of paper, and in 20 minutes, I wrote 12 lines. The most important lines that surfing had taught me about life. 105 words, 12 lines, took me 20 minutes. I'll never turn my back on the ocean. I'll always paddle back out. I'll take the drop with commitment. And I printed up a little card on plastic. And the cards cost me $100, and I printed just over 100 cards. And when all the students came down to the beach, I gave the cards out to the students, and I gave the cards out to the media and to some of the government and state officials, and people were stoked. Wow, this is pretty cool. Like a surfer's code. It sort of had this aura of maybe mystery about it. But people liked it, and the cards were popular. And so eventually the environmental problem was solved. Wonderful groups like Surf Rider Foundation, Heal the Ocean, and a number of other environmental groups got together, and ultimately they raised a bond measure. All the homeowners got connected up to the sewer system, and the environmental problem was solved. But the kept on rolling, and people would phone me up and go, "Hey, Shaun, can I get some cards for my school or for the university, or can I get it for some friends?" And then we started putting the cards in the pocket of our Solitude clothing, and we were selling quite a lot of clothes then. So thousands of these cards, tens of thousands, were getting distributed out into the culture, and it just sort of took on a life of its own. And then people started to invite me to talk at events about this concept of surface code. And I started talking at huge events. One of the events I spoke at was organized by Glenn Henning from Surf Rider Foundation, and ultimate inspiration behind this card. And I met a guy and he said, hey, Shaun, I think this would make a terrific book. You've got 12 chapters. And we collaborated over summer and released my first book called Surface Code, which was an exploration of every one of those 12 lines. And those 12 lines, it's like an onion, they can be peeled and reinterpreted in many different ways. And I encourage all of you, you might have a surf school, you might have, you might deal with autistic children, is you can print this card up and you can give it out to them. Because in this card is a lot of wisdom. And I say that with all humility. I've most probably ridden more waves than most people in the world. I've most probably spent more time in the water than most people in the world. So my life has been built around surfing. And yes, I've created a career and a vocation and a vacation, and my life's been built around surfing. But these 12 lines represent, I think, the spirit of humanity, camaraderie, honor, integrity, commitment, passion, purpose. And this is also open source code. So ultimately, it led to a book. And how about this? How life can work. So I'm sitting out in the water at Rincon one day, chilling out there with 300 of my best mates on a good day. And a guy paddles up to me. He said, hey, Shaun, my name's Gordon Seachy. I'm a headmaster at a local school. It's called Anacapa School. I'd love you to come and talk to the kids about Surface Code and about the book. So I go down and speak to the students. And I take the book along. And while I'm talking to the students, I say, hey, Surface Code's my code, 12 lines, 105 words. I wrote it in 20 minutes. What about your code? What about writing your code, your own code, just like I wrote Surface Code? Write it in 20 minutes, write 12 lines. If I'm beginning with I will. I gave them an assignment right there on the spot. And about a week later, I get back the code. And the very first line of code I get back is from a 13-year-old student. Her name is Elena Alcero. I will always be myself. I will always be myself, man. How about those words for absolute power? And all the other words that these wonderful students wrote, I will have fun, I will persevere, I will not compromise on my morals to fit in with others. Just beautiful, beautiful words of power, passion, and purpose. And I was so taken aback and so inspired by all these words. I immediately phoned up Patrick Moser, my co-author for Surface Code. I said, hey, Patrick, we're going to write another book. And this book is going to be written to empower positive decisions amongst young people. And every single chapter title will come from a student, with the very first chapter title being I Will Be Myself. And some of you know my story. I had shortly before lost my beautiful 15-year-old son, Matthew, to a bad choice. So this book was really written with him in mind, that this book could be a way for young people to perhaps reevaluate and reset and rewrite the code of their life. So the book became popular for a while there. It got to #1 on Amazon in the teen section. I was super stoked. And now many people use this book. I had a friend come up to me. He's one of the top psychiatrists in town here and say, hey, Shaun, I got to tell you, I can't tell you how many people walk in carrying your little book. It's used in prisons and drug rehab clinics. So it's a pretty cool little tool. So now I get all sorts of lines of code from young people, and not just young people, all over the world. Hey, Shaun, my name's Garrison. I met you tonight at Flower Hill Wall, and your words just resonated with me. I always say that I knew as a surfer kid because any surface spell resonated like that, like the resin that goes on the board. And I think the last line was particularly poignant. I will live another day. So now young people create these amazing graphics I walked into this school, and instead of just writing their codes, they created this amazing graphic, this exhibition of art at this particular school, Holy Trinity Episcopal Academy. I will let my dreams outshine my fears. I'll follow my dreams. And I realized that not only were these young people inspiring themselves, but through sharing their codes, they were inspiring others. And they were creating this positive wave that was running through their school. And I became fascinated with this process of creating a positive wave, is how you can drop a stone, create a ripple, build the wave. How can you inspire people to inspire others, to inspire others, to inspire others through this wonderful lifestyle, sport, art form of surfing? And these are what kids in South Africa are doing. And we're working on a project now where young people can write their codes on clothing, on all sorts of product, and really use this as a vehicle for self-empowerment and connectivity amongst people. How about these beautiful designs that this wonderful artist? I will not let negativity bring me down. I mean, in the context of what's been happening in the political world and what's been happening with COVID, and I will hold on to happiness. So I was fascinated by this. I went back to grad school. I think I was the oldest dude in grad school, to study leadership, to study the science of inspiration, influence. And I came across this interesting study that our personal decisions are a fundamental cause of preventable deaths in the United States. In fact, the single biggest is poor decisions. 1 million of the 2.4 million deaths could be avoided if readily alternative choices were made. So bad decision making is a virus. Bad decision making will kill 4 times as many people in 2020 than have died from COVID. So for all of us that are in this, and I've never really thought of what I do as therapy, but I suppose in some ways that it is. If we can impact people's decision making, we can go a long way to reversing this dreadful statistic. And in fact, this statistic is even more profound amongst young people, and that 57% of young deaths can be attributed to personal decisions, which could have been avoided if readily available alternative choices were made. And surfing has just become this amazing vehicle of empowerment, inspiration, and influence. So I want to show you this because there's an issue in society, and it's wonderful to see all of you being interested in stepping up and doing the work that you're doing to reverse this dreadful statistic. There is good news out there, and there's a wonderful study. This was Sigal Basade at Yale about emotional contagion. So what we do is when we work in groups and we create this positive wave, this wave can spread and have important ripple effects in groups and organizations. So the work that all of us do profoundly. And this was a landmark study. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't, but it's one of the biggest social study experiments in the history of the world. Nearly 700,000 people were studied without them knowing. So it was kind of not particularly ethical, but this was with Facebook and the National Academy of Sciences, experimental evidence of massive scale emotional contagion through social networks. So by what we put out there on our social networks, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, can have profound effects down the line. Drop a stone, start a ripple, build a wave. Drop a stone, start a ripple, build a wave. It has incredible power and influence. So I wanted to do my own experiment to see if it's possible to create a positive wave across a nation by getting students to inspire each other with words of purpose based around the simple equation, I will equals power. Will equals power. So I hooked up with a big insurance financial group and a book published, and I thought I'm going to go back to my homeland and I'm going to go and hit 35 schools, 60,000 students, the poorest schools and the richest schools, and see if we can get kids to connect with each other through the code and create this viral wave of positivity. So I started off on my tour, and I told the organizers, I want to speak to the poorest schools, and I want to speak to the richest schools, and I want to speak to schools in between. Now, you must remember, when I grew up in South Africa, I grew up under the apartheid regime. It's a system of segregation called, an Afrikaans word, apartness. So white kids went to white schools, black kids went to black schools, and the economic privileges flowed to the white community. In 1990, Nelson Mandela was released from jail, and the country quickly embarked on a process of desegregation. And in 1994, Nelson Mandela was elected the first democratic president of South Africa in a landslide vote. So it was wonderful to now talk to these young kids. And while in South Africa there's no longer segregation, there's still tremendous economic disparity. And the poor schools are generally populated by black kids. The richest schools are populated by black and white kids, but the very poor schools are populated primarily just by black students. So the day before I'm starting my tour, I get a call from a woman from China Global Television. She said, listen, I'm from the biggest TV station in the world. I want to cover your first event about student empowerment. I said, you know, I'm a little bit nervous. I said, I'm a white guy, and these young students might see me as a symbol of apartheid. Also, these students have never been to the beach. They know nothing about surfing. Certainly, they've never heard of Shaun Tomson, pro surfer. I said, I don't know what reception I'm going to get. I don't know whether they're going to respond. She said, I said, perhaps you could come late on the tour. She said, I'm a journalist. I'm going to come and cover it. So I want to show you this little video because it shows you the power of what we do to transcend anything. To play. Let's see if I can do this. Sorry guys for the technical glitch here.
Surfer Shaun Tomson is one of South Africa's finest sporting heroes. Famous for his style of riding the tube section of the wave, Tomson won the International Professional Surfers World Championship in 1977. Considered one of the 10 greatest surfers of all time, he now inspires others to follow his paddle. In this underprivileged school in Katlehong on the east side of Johannesburg, Tomson shares with youngsters a simple strategy for confronting everyday challenges and making positive, life-changing decisions.
It's so wonderful to be inspiring some young kid in Johannesburg or Durban or Los Angeles, anywhere, just to know that you drop that little pebble in the water, and what's it done? It's created a wave. And that wave is going to go and touch lives.
In 12 personal stories, Shaun shares the power of I will, a code that carries him through life.
While yes, this little code that I wrote, 12 lines that I wrote so many years ago, was about surfing, it's like every line is a metaphor and can be interpreted in so many different ways. It's about how you can be a good person, how you can be a good human being, how you can make a difference in the world, how you can impact others. So I've been on this journey for 10 years now, since I lost my beautiful son. And surfing was this constant. Surfing helped get me back on the path to healing again.
Many of these teenagers have barely seen a beach, but the code has resonated among them.
I will achieve my goals. I will be better. I will dream big, and I will be who I want to be.
I will arise and shine, and I will face my fears, and I will take charge of my life.
Although all these youngsters were born after
I just crapped out for some reason. But anyway, it just was a wonderful experience to see these young people respond to something like surfing that was so alien to them. But it shows that just this tremendous power.
Shaun, Shaun, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, your sound is like really off right now. Sorry. I just want to make sure everybody can hear this last part.
Crap, or was it a little bit better?
That's much better. Thank you.
Is the sound any better?
Much, much better. Thank you. It's great.
I'm not sure. I don't have any audio. Sorry, guys.
It sounds great.
Zoom is sometimes a little bit unstable. Can you guys hear me at all?
Yes.
Okay, so should I continue?
Yes.
Okay, so hopefully that's a bit better. So I went across the country visiting these amazing schools. Oklanga School, where Nelson Mandela voted for democracy in 1994, built a great relationship with the principal. This was one of the best moments of my entire life. I'm standing there with Ernest Bongani Nkosi. I met him when his mom worked for my mom, and he was working in the garden when he was 12 years old for extra money. And he said, Shaun, I got no money. I want to finish my school. I said, I'll help you. I was a pro surfer making tons of money and helped him through school. And then he asked me, he wanted to go to university. I helped him through university. And then I lost touch with Ernest. And on my trip back to South Africa, I get a phone call. Hey, Shaun, it's Ernest Bongani Nkosi. Do you remember me? I said, of course I remember you. He said, I got to tell you about my life. I'm a principal of 1,600 students. I have 2 university degrees, 2 teaching credentials, and I want you to come and speak at my school. And I came and spoke at his whole school. This was one of the classes. And it was just so wonderful to know that I'd given him something so small, like all of you, every single one of you in this therapy field. You give someone something so small, and hopefully they turn it into this this incredible bounty. I went right across the country speaking at these unbelievable schools, getting kids to write their. This was one of my last schools, and after about 2,000 students, and after I spoke, I said to the students, can one of you come up and share one line of code to inspire your fellow students? And not one of them wanted to move. Eventually, the little girl in the bottom right corner, the smallest girl in the school, walks up in front of everyone, puts her hands in the air, and shouts out, I will be a strong Black woman! And the place went berserk. They went absolutely nuts. It was just so amazing to see the power contained in this young girl. And then all the students wanted to come. I'll be a doctor. I'll be a lawyer. It was like this young girl just inspired everyone. So what I want to tell you and end off with is this simple code works in so many different contexts, with pro athletes, with big organizations, with drug rehab clinics. Use it. I encourage all of you to use it. And it's such a simple process. All you do, you get a group of people together, get everyone together, you write your 12 lines, write it in 20 minutes, and then one at a time, each person gets up and they read their code. This is an installation that went up last week at Flower Mall. I do it with enormous companies, Google, GM, PW, Cisco, Disney. But all of you, I encourage you, just use it with your groups. A sheet of paper. You can actually, here's a place where you don't have to use a sheet of paper. I'll give you this QR code, and it's right at the end of right at the end here. But it'll be Chris can. It'll be up on the website. Use the code. It's open source code. People love doing it, and I hope you you enjoy doing it. So get a sheet of paper, write 12 lines, and then get everyone to share their code, because in the sharing is tremendous power. I'm looking for the QR code, but I can't get to it. Anyway, so I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. I love connecting with people. So please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Tell me, you know, whether you like the presentation or whether you didn't like the presentation, if there are any comments you have or any information that you might have about the code, I'm happy to give it. Like I say, it's open source code. Use it however you want to use it. And I'm trying to get to a QR code here, but my Zoom is not responding so well. Anyway, it was my great pleasure to share with you. It is now 8:01. Let me see if I can get to this QR code, and then I will say goodbye. Let me see if I can get to it for all of you.
I'll let you all know that the link is in the community board under organizer announcements. I shared it earlier today.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Shaun?
Great. Well, yeah, thank you very much. Sorry we've had so many technical glitches. Don't blame Chris, you can blame me. Sometimes Zoom is unstable with PowerPoint, you never know. But anyway, hopefully you've kind of got the gist of the program, and any information that you might need, or any ways that you might want to integrate it into your programs, just shoot me an email.
Shaun, we cannot say thank you enough for sharing so much of your experiences and wisdom with us. Like I said, everybody who's still on here, because it is 3 o'clock in the morning in most places and 11 p.m. in other places. I shared his link in the community board. Please use it. And how many times do you go to a session and get Shaun Tomson's email address? Just saying. Yeah. Shaun, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate you joining us.
Pleasure, my pleasure. And I just want to thank you for all of you for the wonderful work that you're doing. It's awesome. I love it. Thank you.
Well, you've been a supporter for a very long time in the way that you've lived your life. So thank you for spreading the good word. And I will continue to listen and learn from you.
Pleasure. Take care.
Thanks so much, Shaun. Bye, everybody. We're out.
Bye.
Good night.